on what happened in Buffalo. Your takeaways from the Broncos going one and done, as expected, in this postseason.
Yeah, it was underwhelming, right? I mean, it was especially at the way they started. To come out with the 5-play drive, march right down the field, punch Buffalo in the mouth. You couldn't have asked for a better start.
And it's Troy Franklin of all people.
Yeah,
you kidding me?
It took them all year to finally link up and show that chemistry that we'd been wanting to see all year, and then they didn't do anything the rest of the game. I mean, I think another deflating point was when they got down into field goal range right before half, and you doink it, and you get no points. I think that changed the whole complexity of the game. Not to mention how much time of possession that Buffalo just ate away at the game. It was the whole game was kind of underwhelming from what we expected, and especially how it started for the first 5 or so minutes of it.
Yeah, to take a 7-0 lead and then not score the rest of the way. Get outscored 31-0 was frustrating. You mentioned the key moments. To me, there was 4 key moments in the game. Will Lutz's doink. You're right. It took the air out of the sail because the drive Bo Nix had before halftime to make that game 10-10, you got to make that kick, dude. You just do. I don't care that it's 50 yards. 50 in the NFL for a kicker is the new 40, Cello. It really is.
Yeah.
You got to put that thing through the uprights. And with Will Lutz, you had the kick in Buffalo last year that he missed. He got bailed out that there was 12 on the field. You had the kick in Arrowhead this year that, yes, I blame Alex Forsythe mostly, but I think some of it's probably on Will Lutz that you didn't beat the Chiefs to end their undefeated season. And then you have a 50-yarder in your first playoff game in 9 years, and you doink it.
And Bo Nix has to feel a little bit snakebit just from the 2 things this year. One, which would have, I mean, for him to go and do that in Kansas City, who was undefeated still at the time, and for him to do that as a rookie quarterback and have it fall apart in Arrowhead, and then another time where it seems like you could get a little momentum back, knowing that Buffalo was going to get the second half kick. You needed those points because, I mean, and the fourth down play where Riley Dixon makes that play, it was like everything seemed like the formula was there, and they just couldn't slow down Buffalo enough offensively for them to kind of get into any kind of rhythm after that first drive. And you and I talked about this last week, and we've talked about it before, the lulls that this offensive group goes through, the 3-and-outs, where Buffalo has like 30-some plays and you have 18 at the time. Like, those things can't happen, especially against a good team like Buffalo, and that ended up proving to be the difference.
Yeah, and I think Will Lutz is, I love he tied Jason Elam. Okay, that's great. I think Will Lutz is really good at making kicks in the second quarter against the Raiders. I'm not so sure he's the most reliable in the clutch, and I just gave you 3 examples. So I agree with you. That was number 1. Number 2, the 2 drives in the second half, Cello, where they go 3 and out, and Sean goes run into someone's butt, incomplete.
Yeah.
Those drives made me want to pull my hair out. Why are you trying to establish the run in January in the playoffs when you haven't been able to run all year? If Bo Nix has to throw it 50 times, Bo Nix has to throw it 50 times. But it was a 1-score game, and you go Javonte into someone's butt, Jaleel into someone's butt, Troy Franklin drop. And then you do it again, Marvin Mims, third down, incomplete. The run, incomplete, 2 3-and-outs. Sean was so aggressive to start that game. He was so aggressive. The first drive was brilliantly scripted. Ends with the 42-yard touchdown pass to Franklin, 43, whatever it was. And those 2 drives, it's just like, dude, this ain't the 3rd preseason game. We're not toying around. We're not tinkering. We're not trying to figure out how the run game works. This is the playoffs against the Bills in a 1-score game in the second half, and you're running it up the middle for 2 yards to set up 3rd and 6 twice. Just drove me bonkers. I thought the play calling from Sean left a lot to be desired on Sunday.
It was almost like kind of a flip almost of the Charger game. It was like bipolar because it was like you start that game that aggressively, and we know Sean Payton to be kind of that type of coach. We saw it do it in the Super Bowl years ago against the Colts. Then he even kind of further solidifies that idea when he does the fake punt. They get nothing really out of that, which was disappointing as well.
Because it was a great fake punt.
But then, great. It's like these lulls where it's like he went from aggressive. It was like, Bizarro's Superman is the complete opposite of Superman. You have aggressive Sean, and then you got let's play to not lose late Cincinnati, Los Angeles Chargers game, Sean. And you can't do it. Like you said, They needed to be going. That should have been the mentality all along.
Mm-hmm.
We're taking shots. And I thought that was going to be the case because through the first 5 plays, I mean, you hit Sutton, I think, on a 19-yard pass on 3rd and 8. And then 2 plays later, you hit Franklin. It was like, wow, they're really going to put Buffalo to the test today. And Buffalo had none of that, man. They squashed it all.
No, they did. And it was frustrating that they, again, took the foot off the gas. The third moment in that game to me that was just, it was the game. It's 13-7 with 3 minutes left in the third quarter, okay? I am sick of this narrative that Buffalo blew out the Broncos.
Yeah, the score's a little misleading.
The final score, they turned it on. I'll give the Bills credit. They turned it on. They said, let's quit playing with our food. Let's put them away. But it's 4th and 1. 4th and 1.
Yeah.
3 minutes left. 13-7. Josh Allen can just fall over and get 1 yard. Instead, the Bills do you this massive favor by dropping Josh Allen back. Where's Nick Bonito? Where's Jonathan Cooper? I don't know. Allen's got all freaking day. And rather than, I better just get 3 yards, he throws a bomb to the end zone. PJ Locke misses the ball by literally centimeters from batting it down. And then Ty Johnson, 2 things, Cello. 1, I ain't sure he even caught the ball. 2, I'm certainly not sure he was in bounds. And I know the broadcast focused inbounds, out of bounds, inbounds, out of bounds, called on the field a touchdown. Go watch the football. It hits the ground. There was 2 reasons that play could have been overturned. Incomplete because it hit the ground, incomplete because his foot was out of bounds. Buffalo makes it 19-7, gets the 2-point conversion, 21-7. You feel all the wind come out of their sails. But this narrative that, oh my gosh, the Broncos just got boat raced. Guys, there was 3 minutes left in the third quarter, and you are literally centimeters away from getting the football back down 13-7. And you and I might be doing 3 hours tonight because we're previewing the Chiefs. Could be having a totally different conversation. That was the play of the day.
Well, I'll agree with you on the play. I'm not so certain that that would have changed the outcome of it. Now, it's different besides saying, getting blown out versus they were thoroughly dominated. If you go back and just look the play-by-play, what Buffalo did, their drives, 12, 13 plays just methodically. And they rushed for how many yards on Sunday? Was it like 200 yards
It was
combined?
a big number.
And I agree with you. And the frustrating thing is I'm kind of sick of what constitutes a catch in the end zone versus what constitutes a catch out in the field of play. Because in the end zone, it's like, oh, did he ever secure it? And was he past the pylon? Then it's a touchdown. They never really focus on did you finish the play, to your point, whether the ball hit the ground or not. Or his foot seemed like it was out of bounds while the ball was still
moving.
Yes. So those kind of things. And then out on the field of play, you have he didn't take the third step crap.
Right.
It seems a little
different rules depending on where you are on the football field.
Yeah. And those things kind of changed a bit back. You remember when you'd be able to say, oh, he was forced out of bounds, otherwise it was a catch?
Yes.
Another silly rule at some point in the NFL. So I agree with you. The score is a little misleading, but they still they got dominated defensively.
I get it. But what could they have done in Cincinnati? They could have stolen a game, right? Sean holds up 2, Bo holds up 2. For whatever reason, a 90-second Marvin Mims review, they don't go for 2. I'm just telling you that if it's 13-7 and Broncos ball at the 24-yard line after either P.J. Locke gets a hand on it or Ty Johnson's out of bounds, you're still in the mindset of we can steal the game. It's still a one-possession game. How much different does 13-7 feel versus 21-7? That's all I'm telling you here. 21-7, it was over. Ball game. Wrap it up. And then Curtis Samuel gets a 55-yard touchdown, 28-7, and, just go get on the plane.
Yeah.
But the point of going to Buffalo wasn't to dominate the Bills. The point of going to Buffalo was to steal a football game.
Yeah.
You had a chance in Cincinnati to steal a football game. You made a coward call. You didn't. If you get the stop on 4th down, which, frankly, I think they may have because I'm not so sure that should have counted for Ty Johnson, you could have stolen that game. That's why it, to me, was the most critical play of the game. I would just like to see the alternate universe where they get the stop on 4th down there. It's Broncos ball 13-7. That's all I'm getting at.
Yeah, no, and I would still like to see the alternate universe when Raheem Moore doesn't let the ball go over his head. Do they win a championship? Or if the 96 Broncos would have stopped the Jacksonville Jaguars. Love to see that. It didn't happen that way. Ended up getting kind of out of hand late, like you said. And Buffalo's known to do that. They can play with their food with a lot of teams. And then I think I even made the point on Friday night with Dante and Mike that if you can weather the storm but not let them get kind of a 2-score lead, then you have the opportunity to put the fear back into them. I guess I'll go back and ask you because I didn't hear your prediction on Thursday. Did you go Broncos or did you go Buffalo?
I nailed the Buffalo score. I had them with 31 points, so I got that right.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I had Denver at 28. So I got one of the two right, but the Broncos came up 21 points short of my prediction.
And I picked Buffalo 29-21, I think is what my score was. I just don't know how we put Buffalo up in this other echelon of the league. And when you look at after a week of breaking it down, you're like, are they really that good, or is just Josh Allen having a phenomenal football year?
Yeah, and James Cook, who obviously had his way with the Broncos however he wanted. I do think, though, they are that good. That's kind of my takeaway, is that there was 3 teams this year the Broncos didn't belong on the field with. And I'll give you the 3, and I want your thoughts. There's 32 teams in the NFL, 31 not including the Broncos. 28 of those teams the Broncos can go toe-to-toe with. Any given Sunday they can beat. There's 3 this year they just couldn't beat. Baltimore's one of them. We saw it, 45-10. Buffalo's another. We saw it, 31-7. And the third one's the Detroit Lions. I think if the Broncos played the Lions, it wouldn't be real pretty. Notice I'm not putting the Kansas City Chiefs in that tier because of what we witnessed in Arrowhead. If a 35-yard field goal goes in, the Broncos beat the Chiefs. I think it's unfortunate that the Broncos played one of 3 teams this year they did not belong on the same field with. The Bills, the Ravens, and the Lions, and that's just the way the bracket broke.
I would put Kansas City in there just because
we have evidence that they can play with Kansas City.
Yeah, but I think we'll see different evidence coming this weekend and what you saw from Kansas City down the stretch.
But is Kansas City going to blow the Broncos out? I don't think
No,
so.
no,
Kansas
no,
City
I
didn't
wouldn't
blow
say-
anyone out this year at all.
No, but listen, they beat them twice in how many years?
2.
No, I mean twice over how, you've only got 2 wins against them over, 11, 12, 13 tries?
I mean, last I checked, they've beaten them 2 out of the last 3 times they've played. No, I get what you're getting.
Yes.
I'm being a little sarcastic.
I'd also
there.
probably put the Eagles in that realm when they're playing at their height. I don't know.
Did you walk away impressed with what Philly did against Green Bay?
No, I said at their height.
Okay, I just think there's 3 teams the Broncos can't play with. You're telling me there's 5 or 6 they can't play with.
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
That's the way I would label it.
And I respect the opinion. I just think it's sort of why I was so bummed after the Chargers and the Bengals, because we did have that little carrot dangling out in front of us. You could go play Houston, right?
Yeah.
And there was a chance to get to the 5. Never happened. And it sort of felt like the inevitable of one and done. Yes, it was great to get in. And I want to get into this in the next few minutes of why this was a wildly successful season. But it just stinks that you look at the 14 playoff teams. I do think the Broncos could have hung with or beaten 10 or 11 of them. It just so happens that one of the handful, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever number we want to disagree on, was just a team that the Broncos are going to lose to, 8 out of 10 times, 9 out of 10 times?
Yeah, and it leads me to think, is the AFC Championship really game going to be this weekend in Buffalo?
Well, the problem with that is the Chiefs just have weird dark magic on their side, and the AFC title game will be in Arrowhead. So if Buffalo and Baltimore have this war of attrition on Sunday night, can the winner really go into KC the following Sunday and beat the Chiefs? Or do the Chiefs just have bye week Texans, basically bye week, win one game and get to the Super Bowl?
That's what the Chiefs are hoping for, them to kind of beat the hell out of one another, and then whoever stumbles into Arrowhead that following weekend is beat up enough that they can go ahead and go for a third straight Super Bowl. But I don't know. I mean, you were talking about the Chiefs, and I know teams are different right now than they were at different points of the year. I think Kansas City's trending up, but I think Buffalo and Baltimore have been at the height for a while now. If you look at the way that Baltimore finished out the year, they look damn near unstoppable, and Buffalo the same way, when they're just doing it differently.
Yes.
Lamar has his skill set, and he's got a lot of outside weapons where Josh Allen is. He's that team. As he goes, they go. Like, if he's going to have a bad game, they're not going. But if he puts on the Superman cape like he did against Kansas City when they rolled into Buffalo, they could beat up on Baltimore this weekend too.
Yeah, no, it'll be fascinating to watch. I'll just believe it when I see it that the Chiefs aren't the representative coming out of the AFC. I hope so. I tweeted on Sunday, we're on to ABC. You know what ABC stands for? Anyone but Chiefs. That's what we're on to. Anyone but Chiefs. I don't have this animosity towards the Bills. Like, normally when a team knocks you out of the playoffs, you hate that team, right?
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't cheer for the Timberwolves last year. You kidding me after what they did to the Nuggets?
I was so happy to see them lose.
Cello, I will have no problem if the Buffalo Bills go to New Orleans. Zero whatsoever. If the Bills are the representative, great. If the Ravens are the representative, great. Just don't give me another year of the Chiefs. And unfortunately, the Chiefs are going to roll over a real fraudy Texans team this weekend and only have to win one legitimate game to go to yet another Super Bowl.
How surprising was that result?
Which one?
The Charger-Texan game.
Well, the Chargers just shot themselves in the foot over
Dude, they had dominated for the first 28 minutes of that first half.
And then Stroud drops the ball on 3rd and 19. Miracle completion, and it changes the whole game.
Like, dude, there it was 6-0 with like 2 minutes left in that first half.
And it should have been 13-0,
Yes.
16-0.
And for the final to be 32-12 was like, talk about two different halves. Like, that one shocked me because I thought, this is Jim Harbaugh. This is where he makes his coin. He's a playoff coach. Like, when it gets close to a championship, and they put up the graphics that day on how much success he had. I think he went to, 3 NFC championship games, went to a Super Bowl when he was with the Niners. For his team to get kind of just dominated that way in the second half, that one shocked me more than any game this weekend.
Yeah, even Jim Harbaugh can't prevent the Chargers from chargering, I guess is the lesson. All right, let's go big picture then on the Broncos here. And I wrote this morning at denversports.com that the 2024 Broncos season was absolutely a massive success. Agree or disagree with that statement? Just to start.
100% agree. Well, and I think I'd probably even just put it more just on the quarterback position. Because I think with everything else was gravy. We needed answers there, and I think Bo passed with flying colors.
Yeah, and that was basically the lead of my column. Denver found its QB of the future in Bo Nix. The Broncos had a winning record for the first time since 2016, and the team made the postseason for the first time since 2015. And there's 2 points I want to make here, okay? First of all, the journey was an exciting one. Let's think about this for a second. Winning 2 games on an East Coast road trip to go from 0-2 to 2-2. The Pat Surtain II pick 6 against the Raiders. Throttling the Saints in Sean Payton's return to New Orleans. Dominating the Falcons at home. The Monday Night Football game against the Browns. And obliterating the Chiefs' backups in Week 18 to punch a postseason ticket. When you think about all those moments I just mentioned, we're going to remember this season for the first time in a long time for the fun reasons more than the downer reasons. Isn't that a pretty comprehensive list of why this season was fun, those 6 moments I just rattled off to you?
And you're forgetting it's the first time they beat the Raiders in quite some time.
True. They ended the losing streak to the Raiders.
And swept them this year. So,
well, I did mention PS2's pick 6 against the Raiders. That's the signature moment against Vegas this year.
Yeah, and it's so like I think that if I have to put it, like the highest moments were the Cleveland game, just because we haven't seen an entertaining football game like that in 8+ years.
Yeah, 42-31.
Like where it was just a crazy back and forth.
2 scores on defense, a 93-yarder to Mims. Yeah.
That, and then, just the dramatic nature of the Cincinnati game where you convert on 4th and 1 to Marvin Mims. You could go for 2 and win it, or you go to overtime. That was just, these are games that we haven't seen in a while. And what the cool thing about it is that you did it with a rookie quarterback, and it never looked like, even on Sunday, didn't look like the moment was too big for Bo. I think game plan-wise, they could have done something different. But as far as like how he's responded to everything, especially after how poorly he started after those first 2 games where the people were questioning big time, that's been the biggest surprise for me.
Well, and I like that you brought up the Bengals because a sure sign this team is back is how much the losses hurt, right? The crushing defeats in Kansas City, Los Angeles, and Cincinnati, they all lingered for days, Cello.
Yeah.
They lingered for days. And that, to me, means the passion has returned. We are living and dying with the Broncos every week again. I went through all the highs with you. You brought up a couple more. And then the lows. The lows were low. That's what it means to, like, be alive as a sports fan, is when the lows really kick you know where.
Yeah, and especially when you start worrying about, like, are they going to blow it? Is this going to be 2008 all over again?
Right. Are they not going to get into the dance?
Where they were sitting pretty, like you said, had an opportunity to go for the 5 seed and then get all the way to the final week of the season. And I know the opponent didn't play anybody, but you still had to go out there and do it. And they looked good. It was entertaining to do it. Did it with some new unis, with the throwbacks, it was, I don't know if we could have planned for a better one.
No.
This season. And I think it's interesting. You say, yes, franchise quarterback going forward, no questions asked.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
I agree with you. But I do find it interesting that there's folks out there that are like, pump the brakes. he could have a sophomore slump like C.J. Stroud did.
Yeah. Well, I'll believe that when I see it. I was in the Broncos locker room clean out yesterday. I thought Bo Nix said all the right things. And Cello, there was big news yesterday. There's about 40 of us surrounding Bo Nix, and all of a sudden he starts detailing these 3 transverse fractures he had in his back and suffered against the Raiders. That's not something anyone expected to come up. And then all of a sudden I look around, and all 40 of us are getting to our phones as quick as possible, tweeting it out. 2 hours later, it's the top headline on ESPN.com. Not often on locker room cleanout day you get a big piece of breaking news, but that's what we got. Cherry on top, Bo Nix's toughness fractures the 3 transverse process, whatever, against the Raiders, and then says there's no way in hell I'm missing my first Monday Night Football game against the Browns. Then they had the bye. He's all healed up now, but that was just another element of the Bo Nix story, the toughness to battle through that.
Yeah, and he played well with it.
Yes.
I mean, you would have never known.
He threw his best pass of the season with that against Cleveland.
Yes. And then, coming back, having the little time off, but it seemed like he played better at that point. But it was like, yeah, you have all those different stories that go into a season that ultimately, do you want a better finish than 31-7 on the road to Buffalo? Yes, because I think that's not an accurate representation of where this team really sits.
No.
And I said it before, is that I don't think the final score is truly indicative of what it was. You do that against a very good team like Buffalo, they're going to put up points on you like that. They did it numerous times this season.
Yeah.
Scored 30-plus points in 13 of their 18 games that they actually played in. So
crazy.
And they did it again on Sunday. It's just unfortunate that it started off so high.
Gave us false hope.
Yes, and then for it just to be, I don't know how many football games you can say where a team just marches down the field. It was a lot like that Indianapolis game, the last time they were in the playoffs. Because they got the ball early against Andrew Luck and the Colts, and they went right down the field and scored.
And then could barely score the rest of the way.
Yeah.
All right, so let's flip it forward then to 2025, and we're going to have months and months to talk about this. But I think a goal we can set on January 14th is to win a playoff game. That's the next logical step for me. Now, remember, Sean Payton postgame said we got to find a way to get some of these games at home. And that was a common theme when I was down there at Broncos Park, powered by Common Spirit yesterday, is playing playoff games at home. Well, Chell, the last time I checked, the only way you can play a playoff game at home is winning your division. And the big bad Kansas City Chiefs still linger. They still loom. Is it fair to say the goal next year is to win a playoff game? And is it also fair that, again, we're doing a way too early preview, the AFC West should also be a goal? And I get that's a goal every year. But can we realistically say, yeah, we want a home playoff game. The only path to do that is to take down the Chiefs in the division.
Yeah, I don't know about percentages that we'd put on it. I mean, if you would have said that at the beginning of the year, you probably would have been like, hey, Will's at Comedy Works starting tomorrow night. Like this is a joke. But
right.
That's not the case now. It is a legitimate conversation. I don't know. I mean, these are those growing pains that you'll go through, which is why I think it was so important that they made the postseason, to get a taste of what that was like and to have to play basically playoff games your last 3 or 4 down to get into it. So it'll just depend on the growth and then just what they're going to do, what's their plan going to be in the offseason, because I think you do need to get a little bit more help offensively. And I think, and I said this last Friday, but this year is kind of the reemergence of a running back and the importance of it. You see it in Baltimore. You see it in Philly. You see it in Kansas City with their dual kind of
Detroit with Gibbs and Montgomery.
Exactly. So it's like, and James Cook, we just saw it on Sunday.
He tore him up. Could get 8 yards anytime he wanted.
They need to make that a focal point in the offseason, because I think that's where the league's kind of trending back towards that.
And while Casey's window shuts a little more, not saying it's shut by any stretch, but it's shutting a little more, Denver's just starts to crack open. And I think a solid foundation was laid this season. And that's exactly what we were all hoping for 6 months ago.
Yep.
If you could take a time machine to July Cello, when you and I sat here around the 4th of July, what did we both want? A foundation. The Broncos laid a solid, concrete foundation this year. That's why I call it an overwhelming success, because we know that some of those lingering questions. I mean, how excited are you to not have to talk about quarterbacks this offseason?
It's awesome.
It's a good feeling.
Yes.
All right, coming up next, Deion